So now we're speaking with Juan Carlos Giron Jr. He's the CEO of Canstar Resources. We're talking specifically about latest progress at the Merry March project in Newfoundland. Just so you guys know, before we ask questions, the company's just secured key permits and has world-class experts in VMS that are essentially mapping core right now, which will inform an upcoming drill program. So JC, you've just secured key exploration permits, as I've mentioned. People on your team include Dr. Harold Gibson and Dr. Rodney Allen. These are considered the world's top VMS experts. What are they finding right now? What's informing the drill strategy that I know is coming up?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the things that really brought these caliber of people to the project is the Merry March discovery hole. So there you have about 10 meters of massive sulfide grading about 15% base metals and about 4 grams per ton gold. So really compelling and interesting. A lot of untested targets at our Merry March project. And this is sitting in a district that we think is one of the highest potential polymetallic VMS districts in the world. ASARCO mined this area for about 60 years, 1920s to 1980s, came up with 5 deposits, over 20% base metal content by volume. We think it's very underexplored by modern tools. And so what we're working on right now with the project is bringing in these world-class experts, taking this geology forward, geology first approach. We're mapping the core. We've just started trenching some of the exploration targets that we have there. And ultimately our goal is to have geologically constrained targets for drilling no later than the early spring next year.
The other thing about this story is that you've got a joint venture, right? $11.5 million worth with VMS Mining. Walk us through what they bring to the table, or what it brings to the table, and also why the deal was the right structure for Canstar.
Absolutely. Well, you're talking about $11.5 million committed to the projects, the Buckins and Merry March VMS projects in the Buckins district over 3 phases. The first phase is $1.5 million. That gets them 10%. Ultimately, they'll pay $11.5 million and get 60% of the project in total. We've structured this at the project level, so it's not dilutive to our corporate shareholders, and it brings in people with some of the best track records in the industry, right? You're talking about the founding group has built and sold about $4 billion worth of mining companies over the last 8 years. Names like Osisko Mining, Dalradian Resources, O3. So, you're talking about people who understand good investments, know how to build things that are successful. And critically, they're bringing in Dr. Harold Gibson, who's leading the joint venture technically. This is someone who has over 100 peer-reviewed papers published on VMS deposits or deposits in volcanology. He sent ROVs down to the seafloor to see these deposits form in real time. And having that kind of strategic technical leadership is everything. So when we set out to really build the foundation for Canstar and set us up for high-value exploration opportunities, that was sort of objective number one: non-dilutive strategic capital from partners of that caliber and world-class technical expertise. I think if you have that, you have as good a shot at success as any company out there in the world, in our opinion. And also, we think it really validates the potential of what we're building to bring in a group like this at the projects.
And you're taking a geology forward strategy rather than, just going ahead and drilling. For investors who are eager to see drill results, though, why this methodical approach? Why is it the right way to explore?
Absolutely, yeah. Exploration fundamentally is the allocation of capital to the collection and interpretation of data. And so when you think about it from that standpoint, when is the right time to allocate capital towards drilling, which is the most cash intensive component of the sector. And we all know that the junior mining sector oftentimes struggles with dilution. And obviously the way that we've structured this joint venture is anti-dilutive. But a big part of managing dilution, which is a core focus of our strategy, is allocating capital at the optimal time. And so what we've done in bringing in these world-class expertise is, first of all, trust them, let the science guide us. We've brought together the best geologists, the best jurisdictions, the best geoscience. So we have to trust the science and follow the science. There's multiple untested targets. For example, at our Merry March project, there's a new target we'll talk about here in just a moment. I talked to our guys in the field there in Newfoundland, and they say, most companies would already drill these targets. Certainly, if we wanted to be a little more aggressive, we could be. I think taking another few weeks, another few months to do things the right way, to really understand the geological context that produces, productive mineralization in this area, geologically constraining them, and then partnering with the machine learning experts at Terra AI, once we've converged internally on a target hypothesis, to assist us with probabilistic modeling, mapping uncertainty, and refining those drill targets. Ultimately, it's going to be much better for investors. And frankly, as much as I'm excited to start drilling, and I think, I totally understand that people, it's sort of the biggest question on the message boards, right, is when are you going to drill? And I totally get that. I think ultimately what excites me the most is the quality of the work being done here. It's just very rare for a junior mining company. And to me, it's what's going to set us up for success.
Well, can we at least talk about how close you might be to defining specific drill targets?
Absolutely, yeah. So really interesting development recently is as part of this geology first approach. So, I mentioned the Mary March discovery hole there, the 10 meters of massive sulfide grading 15% base metals. Certainly, again, if we wanted to take sort of a more sort of, ad hoc or aggressive approach, we could have gone in there and sort of, begun drilling in that area. There's several other target areas we've identified, but this geology first approach is about having a comprehensive understanding of the geological setting. So as part of that, we brought in Matt Penny of Hard Rock Geophysics, who was at Glencore for a number of years. Is now doing independent consulting, particularly in the geophysics space, and has done great work for us. He also helped us with the Deep IP program at our Buckins project. But at our Mary March project, which is 25 kilometers to the east, he helped us with basically a comprehensive compilation of all the historically available geophysical data there. And what we found was something that wasn't on our radar, which is from an IP survey that took place in 2014. So that was before any one of us were involved with the company. And that was previously sort of unknown to us internally. And we found some really compelling chargeability anomalies at Mary March, including basically completely untested 1.2 kilometer chargeability anomaly north of the Mary March discovery hole. So super exciting, super interesting. And again, that's why when you think about the approach that we're taking with exploration, it's not about sort of, in fact, I think one of the biggest challenges that junior mining companies face, oftentimes, there's an attractive target or seemingly an attractive target, and sort of there's this tunnel vision that comes in and focuses on the target. But if you take the time to understand the geological setting, identify multiple targets, prioritize those targets as you geologically constrain them, it really allows you to allocate your resources more effectively. So we have trenching underway right now, and we've added 4 trenches to that geophysical anomaly that we've identified. And we're pretty excited for the results. And I think, as we continue to build out this model and sort of systematically move through these targets, I would expect us to look at, a serious drill program early in the spring. Although, as I've mentioned before, we always have optionality. If there's a reason for us to drill a little bit sooner, we could certainly do that.
Now, if you're successful in finding another Buckins style deposit, what would that mean for Canstar shareholders?
It's a great question, yeah. So I'm based in the United States. I was born in Canada, but I lived most of my life in the United States. And so I work very closely. In fact, I was at UBS in their offshore banking division for a number of years before I got into the mining sector. All that being said, I have a lot of relationships with investors who are not familiar with the mining sector. And now we know, not only because of commodity prices and where they are, but in their national security purposes, the mining sector is hot. So I say that to say that I've spent a lot of time thinking about how do you convey the upside potential of an exploration project to investors who may typically be thinking more about returns in terms of cash flow potential. And so we've done some case studies, actually some pretty thorough case studies looking at the sector. And one of the things that you see is that generally speaking, when you have a discovery drill hole, so basically a wide, high-grade drill intercept, oftentimes you'll see that return multiples on the stock price, and that tends to happen fairly quickly. So there's a company that is in Newfoundland that's also working on these polymetallic copper and zinc-rich deposits. They announced high-grade drill intercept last year. Their market cap effectively tripled overnight. Give people a little bit of an example. And then if you have sustained discovery, ultimately leading up to the delineation of a deposit, you're talking, could be 50 times the current market cap, could be 100 times, could be 200 times. And again, that's not me promising returns to investors. That's just saying when you study these projects and you look at the return potential of discoveries and sustained discovery, those are the kinds of returns that you see in the sector. So that makes it obviously very exciting. And, I think, look, the reality is the asymmetric upside of this play is about as good as it gets, I think, anywhere in the world.
Well, what are you doing to, kind of mitigate risks? Are you de-risking already?
Absolutely. Look, this geology first approach is all about de-risking. And I think it's also important to maybe define risk, because that word is thrown around a lot. Risk is fundamentally uncertainty. And so the better understanding you have of the geology, the more data that you have, the more effective your modeling, the better your machine learning. All of that is about de-risking the opportunity. And fundamentally, we like the asymmetry, right? Because the downside is the capital that we invest and allocate to the project. The upside is potentially hundreds of times where we are today.
I'm glad you did that. Define the risk for us.
Right.
So we're talking about the same thing.
Right.
Can we also talk about Golden Bay? Now,
Absolutely.
for a little bit of context, you're advancing Mary March with the VMS joint venture, as we talked about, while Golden Bay sits with all this potential. How are you balancing resources between a project that's getting serious investment focus or one that could be, a broader opportunity?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, I like to say as a small company, there's very few advantages that you have. One of the advantages is that you can kind of all be on the same page and you can sort of, be in sync and in rhythm, and focus is a critical part of that. So right now, the majority of our efforts and resources are focused on Mary March and Buckens, simply because that's where we have the strategic capital. That's where we've built. If you look at our advisory board, not only did we bring in Dr. Harold Gibson, we announced just earlier this year the addition of Dr. Stephen Piercy to our technical advisory board, full professor at Memorial University, brilliant geologist with a real strength in geochemistry, but frankly, he's also very familiar with the Buckens district, living in Newfoundland and being St. John's based. So that's the ecosystem that we've built right now. We've hired, actually just recently, we've gone from 2 full-time geologists in Newfoundland to bringing in Dr. Harold Gibson, bringing in Dr. Rodney Allen, Matt Penny and his team on the geophysical side. We've now hired 3. We're calling them sort of, core techs or technical assistants that are helping us with the trenching and the core logging program. And then we've hired 2 additional full-time geologists. So that's where we're scaling and that's where we're moving. That being said, the Golden Bay project is a very compelling project. High-grade gold and antimony, 90 kilometers of strike on a major geological setting there, or geological structure, I should say, on the island. And we are advancing that project. Last year, we did several programs of infill prospecting. We acquired additional high-resolution geophysics over the Little River Trend, which is at the heart of a 30-kilometer soil and till anomaly that we see in the project. And we've also done updated geological modelings. Ultimately, what I'd like to see is us, execute a kind of a deal that would look like the VMS mining joint venture we did at the VMS project, so that we can bring in additional strategic capital and technical expertise there.
Well, JC, I hope we can have another conversation maybe in Toronto.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Canstar Resources can be found on their website, which is canstarresources.com. But of course, you can search up the ticker symbol and go to our website, CEO.CA, to see what people are saying about the company and their latest activities. Thanks for watching.